It's been a big final day of this session of federal parliament, the final before the budget and the election campaign expected straight after. The former Deputy Liberal leader and Foreign Minister Julie Bishop has confirmed she's leaving politics, and questions are deepening over a travel company run by the Liberal Party's treasurer. Chief Political Correspondent Laura Tingle's with me. Laura, we spoke about the travel company Helloworld last night. What new information's come out today?
There was what's known in the trade as a bombshell in the Senate estimates hearings today, Lee. A letter from Russell Carstensen, a former executive of Helloworld, the travel group in question, detailing what he said happened at a meeting, or the circumstances of the meeting that he had with Joe Hockey, the Australian ambassador to the US, in April 2017. He says that the meeting was set up after a conversation between his boss, Mr Burns from Helloworld, and Mr Hockey, and that he was told by Mr Burns that he should go to Washington to discuss it because, quote, Hockey owes me, and that he then sort of went to Washington, had the discussions. Now, it should be said that Mr Burns has put out a statement in the last hour or so, flatly denying that he ever said Hockey owes me. And Mr Burns, who is also the treasurer of the Liberal Party, says that he did not set up the meeting, that it was in fact Mr Carstensen who set up the meeting. So conflicting evidence here, but it's an issue that's completely dominated federal parliament today.
Well, this new development quickly made the leap into question time. Let's take a look at a bit of that from today.
Can the Prime Minister confirm that Joe Hockey directed embassy staff to set up a meeting with a subsidiary of Helloworld, a company in which he has $1 million shareholding, and that estimates evidence confirmed that the meeting with this company was arranged because, in the words of Mr Burns, Hockey owes me? Doesn't this confirm that Mr Hockey has been using taxpayers' money and his position to line his own pockets and pay off political debts to Liberal Party donors?
Joe Hockey is a great Australian. If you really thought this was so serious—
Member for Shortland.
If you really thought this was as serious as you are pretending with all your fake gravity, you would have raised this months ago.
Laura, how does this Helloworld controversy play into the bigger picture for the Morrison government?
Well, politicians always hope Parliament can be a platform from which they can sprout their messages. The government went into this last fortnight before the budget hoping to turn a defeat on the House, on the floor of the House of Representatives on medical evacuations from Manus and Nauru into a political victory by turning the tide, making people focus on Labor and asylum seekers, a traditionally weak point. But in fact, the last few days, that message has been confused and buried in the white noise about this travel contract, which of course raises questions about probity, about governance, ethics, and also just those bad images of the sense of privilege around this issue, about the fact that ministers and Liberal Party MPs have these direct lines of communications, which means that they can organise travel without apparently having to pay for it until reminded.
Laura, another blow for the coalition, given she's a huge fundraiser for them and their most popular MP, is the resignation from politics today of the former Foreign Minister Julie Bishop. Here's a little of her statement to the Parliament.
It has been an immense honour to be the longest serving member for Curtin, and I'm also proud of the fact that I am the first woman to contest the leadership ballot of the Liberal Party in its 75-year history. Mr Speaker, I will leave this place positive about the future, proud of the service that I have been able to give to my electorate of Curtin, my beloved Liberal Party, the state of Western Australia and my country.
Laura, Julie Bishop didn't really explain why she's leaving, other than to say that she wants to give a fresh face a chance to enter the Parliament. How's her departure being interpreted?
Well, without a doubt, she's given the party a kick in the shins as she goes, but in her own impeccable fashion. There's nothing that she said today which wasn't anything other than loyal. She said that the party was likely to be re-elected and said it was all very wonderful. But in that speech, she emphasised the fact that she'd built a massive margin in her own seat of Curtin and her own record within several governments. And I think what it does in deciding to leave today, one, she gets to control who takes that seat and make sure it's a woman. I think it's very hard for the government or for the Liberal Party to choose anybody other than somebody who has her blessing. But it also just reinforces those points that this person who was so popular and well regarded relative to a lot of her colleagues was not able to garner the support of her own colleagues in the leadership contest, and it once again highlights the problems of the moderates and women in the Liberal Party.
It was interesting too at the end of her speech who she said goodbye to and how she left the chamber.
Well, exactly. We've had a couple of weeks of valedictory speeches, and there's lots of clapping and hugging, except for poor Kelly O'Dwyer, who didn't really get any colleagues in to watch her speech. She had more Labor Party people. Julie Bishop hugged two women Liberal MPs who'd been dumped by the party unceremoniously, and Kelly O'Dwyer, and then she just left the chamber. She left Parliament House and got on a plane, and I think that was her final comment on what she thought about some of her male colleagues in the party.
Julie Bishop isn't the only long-serving MP bowing out of Parliament. Laura Tingle spoke to 5 veteran MPs from across the political spectrum who are leaving politics.
Here we go. All right, well, big day. Indeed.
Kelly O'Dwyer took one of her last walks into the House of Representatives yesterday.
Seems like yesterday, your first speech.
That's right, it's gone very quickly.
Accompanying her was the Speaker of the House, Tony Smith, a friend and one of the MPs who had escorted O'Dwyer into the chamber for the first time in 2009. The first woman appointed to a Treasury Cabinet role by the Coalition and the first Cabinet Minister to give birth, O'Dwyer was about to give her valedictory speech, having announced that after 10 years she will not recontest the next election. Some of those leaving have careers stretching back to Old Parliament House and the Hawke era, through plenty of political drama. Wayne Swan will leave Canberra after an association going back to the 1980s as a political staffer.
You change a government, you can change a country, and these things do matter.
Gough Whitlam launched Swan's first election campaign back in 1993. But like other MPs, he wants to believe he has left a legacy of his own.
They've cut by one. It's a 1% or less.
For Swan, that legacy is the response to the global financial crisis, crafted when he was Treasurer.
And yet Australia did avoid recession, alone of the world's major developed economies to do so. A miracle, some say, but there was no divine providence about it. Australia avoided a recession because of sustained recession-beating policy. And as I've said a dozen times in this place, we did this by choice, not by chance.
You look great, and we've got a good...
If I look great, you need to see a good ophthalmologist. I can recommend one.
You're only...
Empty chamber today.
It is.
And it was an almost empty chamber when you called for a Royal Commission in 2011.
It was, Laura, something I've battled for a long time.
My message to you is I do not give a rodent's backside what you think, and I'll say what I want in this place when it comes to highlighting white-collar crime and the destruction of people's lives.
Whatever you say, someone will oppose it.
And it is time this country had a Royal Commission into white-collar crime.
Sometimes you've got to just stick to your guns, stick to what you believe in, and your colleagues may disagree with you, but if you do your research and you know you're on the right track, stick to it. And history will show that's what happened with the Royal Commission.
National Senator John Wacker Williams can count his push for justice for victims of financial institutions and a banking Royal Commission as his considerable legacy.
Hi, my fellow Victorian.
But politicians all have different contributions to make when they come to Canberra.
Government really does matter to people's lives.
Jenny Macklin's contribution was as a Labor Cabinet Minister who steered the party's policies on welfare, disability and Indigenous affairs over decades. I don't think you'll take it in a bad way if I say you're a bit of a policy nerd.
Has been said.
What surprised you the most about politics?
When you have the opportunity to really introduce major reform, I think the time that takes, so for example, introducing the National Disability Insurance Scheme, really from start to finish took about 5 years.
So my little analogy, I think of it, Parliament as like a footy team.
As an independent, Cathy McGowan's contributions were very different.
We've got the two teams, coalition and the opposition, and they hammer and tong. And I'm sort of like, I play for Barnawartha. Like, I get onto the field, I get a couple of hand passes, I kick a few behinds. I don't get many big goals, but over a period I get my 6 behinds and I've got a goal.
When I first came here, being a farmer from the private sector all my life, thankfully living in rural Australia all my life, then coming down to work with these public servants, they don't work. Well, I soon learnt a lesson when we got onto the committee work and all the Senate inquiries and saw the secretariats, how hard they work, coming in here at 7 in the morning, walking out 11 at night. I learned a lesson that people do work really hard in this place and politicians work very long hours.
When the public looks at the TV, they see hand grenades being thrown around the chamber, a bitter atmosphere. It is not like that at all. We work closely together on our committee work and have achieved so much.
I'm a bit known for having a go at the National Party now and again, but that's life here. But him and I always got on really, really well.
There's a whole world of meetings and activities shaping the lives of our MPs and senators in Parliament House.
Thank you very much.
I know it's...
Yeah.
Cathy McGowan is hosting the Singaporean High Commissioner in her office, introducing him to a group of volunteers.
The international connections you make at this stage of your career, keep in touch with them.
Take it and learn.
Most politicians will tell you they leave politics having met people and learnt things they never expected to. But they are also, of course, there when history is made. When Malcolm Turnbull was toppled in 2009, Wacko Williams was in the thick of it.
If you go with this ETS, Menzies is going to turn over in his grave. I said, you can't. Anyway, that all happened, we turned it over and Turnbull was gone, but he came back.
Getting a hug from Nelson Mandela, beat that. Sitting in the cabinet room on the Sunday when the global financial crisis was collapsing. Wayne was on the phone from the United States as we decided the plan to save Australians from mass unemployment.
And it's worth reflecting briefly on what might have been. Think about where the rest of the world is now. We've got the rise of populism and ugly nationalism, particularly across Europe.
Leaving is always bittersweet. Things achieved, concerns for the future.
I'm very concerned about the state of our democracy. I think a lot of people have lost faith. I think we in Australia have created a wonderful country, but if we see our democracy falter in the way that I think we are now, then we are in a very dangerous place.
Social media and a proliferation of tribal echo chambers have led to warped perceptions of Australians' views, a failure to listen to alternative ideas and a decline in genuine policy debate and civil discourse.
There are 16 MPs and senators who will be voluntarily leaving the Parliament at the next election. It's a changing of the guard. Many leave a Parliament very different to the one they arrived in.
My husband likes to joke that I'm, the only person he knows who is steadily working their way down the Reader's Digest most trusted professions: lawyer, banker, parliamentarian. So I think he's happy that hopefully I'll get a bit of an uptick, after I deliver the valedictory.
Does it feel funny to be giving your valedictory speech today?
No, I'm ready to go. It really is, as I've said before, it really is time. 23 years is long enough, and time to do something else. We'll see what.
All the best to them. Residents in southeast Queensland